it's very rare. Like every once in a while, somebody will like they'll just because like whenever I post on social media and stuff, I usually tag my city, and like I also go to a local coffee shop to work all the time. So yeah, sometimes I'll see someone. But a couple of years back, me and my wife were in our college hometown, or college town, so we went to Commerce, and we're about to go into Walmart, and I was just like completely joking with her, and I was like, man, like really hope I don't get recognized, like I don't feel like people bugging me for pictures and stuff, just being an idiot. And then like sure enough, like we're on an aisle and somebody comes up to me. They're like, "Hey man, are you Derek? Like Derek Stanley Fitness?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." I was like, and they were just telling me that they've been following me for a little while and love all my content. And I just looked at my wife and we both just like busted out laughing. And I told them, I was like, "Yeah, I was just joking with her that somebody was going to recognize me. I didn't think there was any chance that anybody actually would." So
Dude, no, that's hilarious. Like my girlfriend and I, we have like this running joke because the first probably like 5 or 6 times we ever hung out, someone noticed me.
no
And
way.
yeah, it was so random too because I'm not like that type of person. I'm not like famous, nothing like that. So it was just all coincidence. But we'd be like at the airport and like I would see someone that I knew from college just like sitting in the terminal, like we'd chat for a bit. But she had it in her head that I fucking knew everyone. Like she thought I knew everyone in the world for a bit because like we'd be in Chicago, we'd be like in Florida at Disney or something. I would just run into someone that I knew, or like someone would notice me from social media. And it was like the goofiest thing in the world because it probably has never happened since then. Like
Yeah.
it was like the first 5 or 6 times we hung out in person, someone recognized me.
No, like it makes you feel cool though, right? Like you feel a little, yeah. Like I love it every time. Like I said, it's rare, but whenever it does happen, it's pretty cool. But I feel like you're a little easier to recognize because like you're so big. Like how tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
Oh, are you? I always thought you were like 6'5" or something. But
No, I'm only 6'1", but like
okay,
I have identifiable features.
yeah, yeah, you're a big dude.
Well, I've
I was
also got like the tattoos. So like
okay,
the tattoos are like super identifiable and like distinguishable. We'll be at like a music festival or something,
yeah,
and like someone will come up and like notice me or like see me from somewhere just because of
yeah,
my tattoos. Like it has nothing to do with like who I am. They just like see my tattoos somewhere and then they
yeah,
know me from that. So like I guess that's kind of like a cheat code for the whole like being recognized thing. But no,
yeah,
man, like that's something that I've always found like really funny just because like the fitness world and like how everyone just kind of sees random content that gets popped up on their page. And like I know that a lot of people will bookmark stuff. So like how much like do you ever post like random workouts and stuff that you do?
like on social media and like
Yeah, yeah.
bookmark my own posts.
Well, you like do you ever just like post like workouts that you do?
Yeah, oh yeah, like I do it on my stories a lot.
Yeah, like whenever I do stuff like that, I'll have like 100, 200 people will like bookmark them or whatever. Uh, and like whenever I see that, I'm always like, damn, like someone is gonna notice me and be like, I did that
Yeah,
workout that you did. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
whenever we're at commercial gyms around the area, I feel like that's just like a super common thing.
And you're probably like, that's cool, but like that was my workout.
Well, no, I mean I do post them so that other people can like actually do them. A lot of the stuff that I post these days is like pretty. I'll say it's like generalized, but it's definitely not like for me specifically. It's just like to put content out there because like my training is taken such a back seat to everything else the last couple of years. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're the same way.
No, yeah, my training has been rough for a couple months, but yeah, I feel like we've kind of been on somewhat similar paths over like the last couple of years. So like, it's so weird that I'm just not talking to you the first time since I've been following you for so long. But like, I used to like look up to you so much, like, or I still do. I say I used to like f you now. No, but no, man, like you used to post like crazy videos of you like deadlifting. I don't know, 900 pounds or something, 600, 700, 800 pounds, like
Yeah, yeah.
just going full beast mode. And I feel like I don't really see many of your training posts like pop up anymore. But whenever I do now, it's like they're kind of more like you're focusing more on like hypertrophy and like just quality movement and just I don't know. It just seems like it's a little bit different. Is it because of injuries or what?
Yeah. Well, injuries, but then also like there was just I couldn't get that motivation to lift like that again after COVID. So like
Yeah.
once we got locked down, like once we were quarantined, and I went through like 3 or 4 months of like not having access to heavy weights, not being able to do that stuff. Like I was doing body weight, kettlebell workouts for like 3 or 4 months. And then actually at the end of quarantine, so this would have been like maybe a month or so before the gyms here opened back up, I tore my
Mhm.
adductor doing Bulgarian split squats.
No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Just like complete freak thing. But I tore the muscle belly and that like, dude, that was a miserable recovery. It took me probably like 6 months until I was comfortable doing any kind of like deep range of motion squats again. I had like a huge mental block against most things for lower body just because of that adductor injury. And I was having like, scar tissue break free, like pretty regularly. Like if I would go down into a lunge pattern, like I would just feel this like Rice Krispies in my adductor and groin. And yeah, dude, I mean, it was just, that was like a psychologically kind of scarring thing just because, dude, I don't know if you've ever strained or torn an adductor, but dude, it's such an uncomfortable spot to have an injury. And mine was like pretty limiting for quite a while. Just like it really impacted my life, like not even just training, but like how I was able to function in daily life. And I think that was a big wake up call for me where I was like, why am I even doing the shit I'm doing in the gym?
Now, do you mean because of the pain it was hard to function, or do you mean like psychologically because like your training was going so poorly that you were just kind of in a dark place, or what?
No, it was, well, at first it was the pain. Like at first it was definitely the pain. It was like the restriction on mobility and like not really being able to like sneeze without having a lot of discomfort.
Like that.
Yeah. Because the issue I had was like I tore my adductor, but like the swelling and inflammation like went all the way up into like my abdomen. So then even whenever if I would cough, if I would sneeze, like my abs would tighten and brace, and that would pull on my adductor. So then I was getting like all of this referred pain just from, again, like trying to live, and this is probably like another stupid thing, but like, dude, trying to have sex with like a torn or recovering adductor was, I was like, this sucks. This is, I can't do anything. But that really made me reevaluate a lot whenever
like you can't avoid like Valsalvaing, like doing the Valsalva maneuver basically like whenever you orgasm, like
or man, I can't even like fully extend my hips, like
it's so bad.
I extend my hips and like that's stretching my adductor out, and it was just like it was really uncomfortable. But yeah, whenever I got back into the gym post COVID lockdowns, I had to kind of like reevaluate why I was training the way that I was training before. And it was like a conscious, semi-unconscious decision that I made to myself where like, I just weighed the risk and reward of like continuing to train like that. And I realized like, if I was going to be in consistent discomfort, consistent pain, like not being able to live a comfortable, normal life, like even just, hey, I want to go on a hike, and like not being able to do that because I'm like so out of breath, or, not being able to, it's like not being able to like change directions quickly because I'm like worried about like blowing my Achilles out because I'm like so heavy out all the time. So yeah, it was a slower process, but I definitely got to the point where, like business was picking up. So my priorities were changing, and that was like necessitating less and less time spent at the gym. So I don't have, an hour to warm up anymore. And then, dealing with recovery issues from the injury, and then just like the kind of motivational lull, not really seeing the purpose and like trying to get back to what I was doing. Cause I wasn't competing then. I had some like vague aspirations of doing some like powerlifting meets, but like even then I couldn't really stay healthy enough to do like bench, squat, deadlift specifically. I could get really strong on like leg press and like RDLs and different types of variations of those movements. But it was like, I just didn't see the point in like subjecting myself to that risk if there wasn't going to be like some huge payoff. And like, I guess the payoff for me back then was like semi making some kind of name for myself in terms of like training and like having a social media presence, and like people being able to see that, follow me, reach out, ask for coaching. And, I guess that was useful for sure. That gave me a jump start for what I'm doing now. But yeah, just, I don't want to be like in a wheelchair whenever I'm 40, man. Like I can already feel myself getting older. So like
how old are you?
I'm only 29.
Oh, you're young, man.
Yeah, I'm young, but like, I mean, obviously you understand this because you have a family, you have a kid. I don't have a kid, but if I were to ever have a child, like I would want to be able to like throw a baseball around with them, like run with them, play with them, wrestle. Like I don't want to be worried about like my joints hurting, my low back hurting and stuff like that. Like I want to be able to live like a longer, healthier life. And, this is kind of monologuing, but I just felt like whenever I was training, like I was training, I was just like always one rep away from being like fucked for like 6 months,
Yeah, there's some risk inherent with it, you know, like catastrophic injuries like what you suffered are rare, but I mean they do happen. And whenever you're pushing the limits like you were, they're a little bit more likely to possibly happen, you know? How how long was like your recovery through rehab and like the injury process and everything? Like
So
were you conditioned for like a year, for like 6 months? Like
so I tore the muscle belly, so I didn't have to have
yeah,
surgery. So that was lucky. Um,
yeah,
but the recovery process of being able to get back into like a full range of motion, that probably I was aggressive in the rehab. I'm not gonna lie, but again, part of that was because I had nothing else to do at the beginning other than like
yeah,
sit and like kind of like toil and do nothing in like an apartment while we're all locked down. So I'm like, well, I might as well like try and do something with this leg.
yeah.
And I had enough knowledge like how to do that safely and like not re-aggravate the injury. So I was definitely really aggressive in like the early stages of like getting the mobility back, making sure that it didn't like start to contract and seize and like limit everything that I was doing. But I would say that it probably took about 2 to 3 months before I was able to get like a parallel squat again.
Yeah.
Um, I
So did you kind of like how did you ease back in? Did you ease back in by doing like so like whenever I've suffered injuries before, like I usually start with range of motion and things like that. So I'm like starting with like high box squats and then a little bit lower and then a little bit lower and then removing the box with like really light load and then continuing to like progress in that way. Was it similar?
Well, at the beginning, I couldn't because I didn't have access to equipment, right? Because we were still
Oh, that's
locked down. So at the beginning, it was literally like, all right, well, I'm just going to do this pelvic tilting drill because
yeah.
that was like pretty uncomfortable, just like shifting my pelvis back and forth and like having the adductor lengthen and like kind of, contract. It was uncomfortable. But from there, it was like, all right, we're going to do like very low step ups. Like,
Yeah.
can I even like extend my hips? Can I do any kind of like glute bridge movement? So like nothing that is even taking my hips into like deep flexion or stretching my adductor. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out anything that I could do to get blood flow into the area, like without aggravating it. And I was trying to do it in as many different ways as possible. So that was a big thing. And like I was also, trying to do any kind of like isometric work that I could in different angles and different positions for my adductor. So like if I could find a position of hip flexion or hip extension and abduction and adduction that I could apply at least like 1% of pressure, I would try and find that and try and do that. But again, I had nothing else to do during this time. So yeah, it was.
Kind of makes like the timing of the injury even worse. I mean, like start of lockdown and COVID and like everything sucks anyways. And it's like you're also dealing with that injury. Like I'm not gonna lie, I think I probably would have felt like depressed. Like, cause I mean, even like minor injuries and stuff, whenever you can't like squat how you want to squat and deadlift how you want to like nothing like it affects your mood throughout the whole entire day. And like nothing goes as well as it normally would go, it feels like. And like then whenever your training is going awesome, you're getting PRs and everything is in the groove, like you're in a better mood, like you're a better coach for your clients, like all of these things. So it's tough.
Yeah, definitely. And that was something I experienced too. And at the same time, I was also going through a divorce. So like
Oh
that,
man.
that was just like compounding. Yeah. So like divorce, being locked down with like COVID stuff, and then also having to deal with like this pretty big injury that I'd never really had to deal with in that capacity. I was like, all right, this really sucks. So yeah, like that was just like a compounding of factors to where it just necessitated that I change the style of training that I do now. And now a lot of it is honestly, it's kind of a little unstructured. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think part of that too is just because my schedule is it's not variable. Like I have control over my schedule, but there are times, like I'll have a pretty heavy day of calls where it's
Mm.
like, all right, shit, like if any of these calls goes over, I'm gonna have to, really cut into my gym time. Or
Yeah.
there are times whenever like I'll have something come up while I'm at the gym. It's like, all right, I've got to leave now. Like just shit is happening. So I do think I think that the unstructured aspect of the training that I'm doing right now is good for some things because it's like less stressful for me, and I know what I'm doing,
Mhm.
but I'm also very well aware that I'm not making the
Right.
progress that I probably would want to be making. But yeah, one of these days I'm gonna get my shit together and
Yeah.
continue to push in there.
Well, I feel like going through like kind of some unstructured training, just like making things fun again and stuff. For people like us who've been training for like 10 or 15 years, like it's like you said, like you're not gonna be making like optimal progress, but it's good like psychologically sometimes to do that and train like a little bit more intuitively and just go and hit up like some sets of curls and like triceps and things like that.
Yeah, dude, I had forgotten what it was like to have like an arm day. So like I would go in and like, just do arms.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is like so boring, but at the same time, it's like kind of fun because you just get like such a nasty pump. You're like, holy shit, like I look so dope. But that was like one thing for me. But like, what does your training structure look like now?
So I was gonna say, like, does every lifter kind of go through this? Yeah, because like I had a very similar epiphany as you, and this was just like a couple of months ago. So I was just like hanging out with a group of friends. Like probably should have journaled about this, but we just got to talking, and we were talking about our training and everything. And I was complaining about how like my knees are always aching and my low back is always, it's fine. But I had kind of just forgotten what it felt like to feel like really good and be like really healthy. And I started thinking, I'm like, what's the point? Like, kind of like you said too, but like you had even more of a point to do it because you were actually lifting like very impressive numbers and could have possibly like competed in like broken records and things like that. Like I've been training for 15 years and I'm still going for a 600-pound deadlift, and I'm at 576 pounds. So I'm 24 pounds away. And I started realizing like, why am I going for a 600, like just so I can post it on Instagram and get like a few likes, like why am I really doing this? Because it's like for me to go from 576 to 600 after this long of training is going to take some ball busting work. Like it's going to suck. Like I'm going to be deadlifting 2 or 3 times per week. My knees are going to continue to ache. Whenever I'm rolling around and wrestling with my son on the floor, I'm going to be feeling more pain, which is going to put a damper on things. So like, yeah, it was like 4 or 5 months ago, I completely made a change. And I started there for a little bit. I just started doing like random workouts, like making things fun. So it was like completely unstructured for maybe a month or two. And now for the last like 3 or 4 months, I've been doing a little bit more structured, just full on like hypertrophy training. So like I haven't done a deadlift from the floor in 4 months. I haven't done a barbell back squat in 4 months. Like now I'm training on the Smith machine and I'm taking like 3, 2, 1 tempo, like very slow down. I'm pausing at the bottom. And like, I'm just getting my legs like engorged with blood and like just getting insane pumps. And dude, I will tell you, like, it's been a lot of fun, first of all, but also I've never felt this good in my whole entire life. Like my knees aren't aching, like my back's not aching. Like I run around with my son all day, every day, like in the evenings. I feel like I could go like dunk a basketball for the first time in like several years. It's just amazing. Like whenever you don't have those small aches and pains, how much more potential, like performance potential you have. Because like even on, I'm still hitting big numbers, even on like accessory stuff. So like hip thrusting 405 pounds plus, like RDL on like 365 and things like that. So I'm still hitting good numbers, but I've completely shifted my mindset and I'm not just like hammering away at squat, deadlift, and bench, and kind of letting some of those repetitive injuries that come up over the years, like finally fully heal. And I just feel great. So
Do you have a powerlifting background?
so I've done, I don't call myself a powerlifter. I've done powerlifting meets. So I've done, I think 5 or 6 meets. So I competed at nationals, like drug tested nationals in, June of, was it last year? Yeah, June of, so about, I can't believe it's already been a year ago, but yeah, I completed at, drug tested nationals in, Atlanta last year, but that was like my 5th or 6th meet that I've done. And then, yeah, you know how it goes. Like whenever you're drink. So after that, like that's whenever I started getting burned out, because it's like, man, all this damn work to go from like a 565-pound deadlift at my last meet to like a 576 or whatever, like for 10 pounds, like that's like 2-hour training sessions, 5 times per week. And now I bet my total training time for the whole entire week is like 5 hours. Like I'm doing 45 to 60-minute sessions. I'm getting in, getting out, got more time for like hobbies, for going for walks, doing a little bit more cardio, things that are going to lead to like more long-term health and all that. So it's been cool.
Sometimes I look back on like some of the stuff that I was doing back whenever I was at my biggest and strongest. I mean,
you were a beast, bro. Like what? Because you've leaned out a lot too. Like what were you at, like weight-wise and stuff, like back then?
the heaviest I ever got was 275.
That's insane.
Yeah.
What are you like? Are you like 220 now? Like
220.
Yeah, dude, you look great.
Well, so the thing with that is that the 275, I was gigantic for sure.
Yeah.
But
that's why I thought you were like 6'5".
Dude,
you were so big. Like
I was just so uncomfortable, man. Like some people can hold 275 well. Like I have friends who they're 275, 300, and I'm like, dude, you look normal. Like you look like a normal big dude. But me,
It's a big ass human though.
yeah, but me being that big, because I'm just naturally a very thin person. Like I've got a small skeleton. I'm not dense. So like if you look at my joints, like my joints are small. You can't see
Damn.
now. But yeah, I've got small joints. They're not made to hold a lot of muscle on them. They're not made to hold a lot of load on my back, nothing like that. So whenever I was 275, I was hauling around so much unnatural weight on my body. And granted, I was like relatively lean, I guess, like for being that big. I was still probably, you know, like sub 15% body fat. Yeah. But like the amount of food I had to eat, obviously like the amount of like unfortunately PEDs that like I had to take to be that size, like the training that I had to do, it was absolutely insane. I was killing myself. And like there were periods where I would do I was up to at one point like 6 times a week training, and each of those training sessions was, it was like push pull legs, but each of those training sessions was like, you know, 2+ hours, crazy voluminous.
That's a job. That's like a part-time job.
Dude, it really
That doesn't even include the food and the meal prep to hit like probably the calories that you needed to hit.
And dude, that was the other part of the job. Was there was also I think it had to have been whenever I was at my biggest, because I remember it really specifically that my maintenance was like 5,500 calories a day.
Dude, it's ridiculous.
Well, people always now will talk to me and be like, "Oh, like why'd you lose so much weight?" Or like, you know, like, "Are you trying to lose weight?" And I'm like, "I'm not trying to lose weight, but like I still hate food.
Yeah.
I had to eat that much food just to maintain my body weight." Like people will talk about how prepping is really hard or like dieting is really hard. And it is hard. It is really hard. But I've done both, and I would 100%, a million times out of a million times take dieting versus trying to force feed myself all fucking day. Because I was having to like restrict how much sleep I was getting to eat enough food.
That's when you're like, man, like, is this really worth it? Like,
yeah. Well, back then I was like so like tunnel visioned. Like I couldn't think of anything else other than like training and doing exactly what I was doing in the moment. Like that was my entire life. I didn't have any interests. I didn't have any hobbies. Like that was it, you know? And it's crazy for me to think about now. Like, you know, now I train 4 times a week, and like my training sessions are 45 minutes. I go in, I don't fuck around. I just go in, get my stuff done. You know, I eat three meals a day, and it's like, yeah, it's so simple. And part of that, I guess 2 things. Part of that makes me realize just how easy it is, like maintain once you've done it for such a long time. So like if you have a really solid foundation of like muscularity, strength, like conditioning, technique, all those things, if you have done that for a long time, your body just wants to hold on to it. Like maintaining is so much easier than I think a lot of people realize. And for me to have like regressed down this far, like, you know, I've been like actively bullshitting around. I maintained my physique, or I guess like my muscularity relatively well for a long time. But like the second thing too is that once you have done like these habitual things for a really long time, it's just so second nature. Like I don't think about anything anymore. I go in, I know what I'm doing, just back of mind. Like I don't think about the training that I'm doing. Like I can literally go in there and just hit like a 45-minute session and just do upper body, and like intuitively I'll hit every like main pattern and just like superset antagonistic muscle groups. I'll do, you know, like 2 to 3 sets of everything, like 8 to 12 reps of everything, keep rest periods like 30 to 45. Like it's crazy how intuitive I do everything at this point, because I'd done it for so long. And the same thing with nutrition, like
very, very similar with nutrition.
Dude, yeah, if I pour out dry rice into a cup, I don't have to wait. Like I know exactly, like I can hear the grains hit, and I'm like, I can count them in my brain, you know? So it's like, it's crazy how much that stuff has just been like imprinted in my head and in my brain at this point, where before, and for a lot of people, like trying to get into that stuff, it's just like such a hassle. It's like such a mental effort. But once you do it, it's like, it's almost the opposite. Like you can't break yourself out of doing those things now.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I'm at a point to where like just nutrition is so easy for me, and it hasn't always been that way. Like it's taken a lot of work to get to this point with habit changes, tracking my food intake, all kinds of things like that. But it's like now, if my goals change, if I want to go from a surplus to a deficit, or from maintenance to a surplus, whatever, like I just make these smallest changes to my nutrition and I can instantly do it like that. So it's like, I used to have, 2 or 3 packets of instant oatmeal for breakfast with a protein shake and some fruit. And like whenever that's kind of like your very consistent like daily menu, basically, you can just like, hey, I'm gonna start having 1 packet of this instant oatmeal now. Still have my protein shake, still have my fruit, and the same thing for lunch. Just like, well, I normally have what do I normally have for lunch? I usually have like eggs or egg whites and some rice, maybe some type of burrito bowl. But now it's like I just cut out the whole grains and I just have extra fruits or veggies. But it's like really simple swaps like that. And that's what I try to like get all of my clients too. So like whenever I start coaching with someone, and you can tell me if you do the same thing, but I'm always telling them about meal structure. I'm like, let's get you on a good meal structure. Like you need to be eating like 3 to 5 meals per day at somewhat similar times. Of course, you need to have like some flexibility with it, but like you don't have to eat at exactly 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. every day, but eat somewhere between like 8 and 10, somewhere between 1 and 3, and just get somewhat of a similar structure. Do that. And if you also go to bed at about the same time every single day, I feel like everything just falls into place and it makes everything a million times easier. You're not having to stress about like every grain of carbohydrate, like all of that. So yeah, to your point, like it just feels way easier now and so intuitive to where it didn't used to feel that way. It used to be kind of like white knuckling or something, like tracking like stressing about like, oh man, was this 160 grams of freaking banana or was it like 155, Now it's like, I don't care. It's a medium sized banana and I just eat it. And even if I am tracking my even if I'm tracking my nutrition, I just eyeball it and guesstimate it. And I guarantee you I'm within like 10 or 15 grams just because I've been doing it for so long. So
Yeah, dude. I think that like having a consistent routine for anything is probably the most important thing.
Important.
Well,
Is there anything throughout your day that like you've identified, like whenever I do this one thing, like everything else kind of falls into place and like my days are so much better?
yeah, waking up whenever I wake up.
Whenever you want, like not have
Like whenever I intend to wake up. So I'm a morning person, right? So like usually I'll try and wake up by like 4 a.m.
Holy shit, I'm not that much of a morning person. I'm like a 5 a.m. 5:30 morning person.
Yeah. So dude, I've become a morning person over the years, mostly because I've realized that whenever I get really stressed, whenever I get really overworked, really overwhelmed, anxious, all of that, the more time that I can have at the beginning of my day to like ease in and have like peace, calm, privacy, whenever I'm not jumping out of bed right into work, right onto my computer and like having all these like notifications hit me.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
yeah, the more time that I have at the beginning kind of for myself, just the better my mood is and the more able I am to tackle everything else in my day. So I've noticed that, dude, if I sleep in until 6 a.m., it feels like I can't do anything the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm incapable of it. It's just more so that like I automatically feel like shit, like I don't have that time at the beginning to really like allow myself to slowly ease into my day. I feel like I'm already kind of having to rush in.
Yeah.
And again, it's not necessarily like that because I'm not, planning shit at 6 a.m. But I usually do try and structure my day to the point where it's like, okay, like I have a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours in the morning where it's kind of just like my bullshit time, right? So whereas maybe other people would have that like at the end of their day, I kind of had that at the beginning of my day. But it's just, no one else is awake. I can do whatever I want to. I can read if I want to. I can, fuck around on my computer if I want to, which I never do. But it's more so like whatever I do. Yeah, it's just
or you're bombarded with messages and like social media and like email and all those types of things and programming and work.
Yeah. And I really just, I like that silence. Like I like the silence of 4 a.m. It's just very peaceful for me. But
dude, I feel like silence is so important. Like I don't feel like most people like actually carve time out, even if it's just like for 5 minutes to sit there and just like be quiet and don't have any inputs and don't be staring at like TikTok reels or Instagram reels or TikTok or anything like that. Just like sit in silence and like be with your own thoughts. I feel like there's some kind of cliche quote wrapped up in that, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's so important.
There's definitely like some Confucian quote,
Yeah. There's something there.
But I definitely agree with that. Like it's difficult to just sit and do nothing.
Yeah.
And I find that as my day goes on longer, it becomes more and more challenging for me to sit and do nothing because I'm distracted. Like I have all of these things in my head that like I need to do or I want to do, or I have to respond to this person, I have to check this email, or I have to check this notification, I have to, plan for tomorrow. So it's like, again, in the morning, if I can wake up at 4 a.m. and have like those couple of hours to myself, that sets me up for success. Basically, more than anything else I could do. That and actually like planning my day out beforehand. So like the night before I go to bed, I plan my following day out, and I just try and, have some general structure. Like, okay, I want to accomplish these things. I need to, go to the gym at some point. So let me go ahead and like throw that in here.
Yeah.
The podcast that I'm recording at this time. I need to, go to on a lunch date or a dinner date, whatever, with my girlfriend. I know that I need to carve out time for that. But like just being able to sit and like look at my next day and all the things that like I need to get done, the things that I want to get done, it just takes the anxiety and stress away from it, because I know that each of those things has like a time block for it,
Yeah.
Whereas just trying to like free ball it the following morning and just being very overwhelmed and trying to like, work without a lot of direction. Which that's what I used to do. I used to just be very like chaotic with everything that I did. Somehow it got done, but these days I need structure, and I need like that, I guess, me time, that privacy, some way to decompress.
Are you in a pretty consistent routine or habit where you do that every single night, like plan your day out, like kind of hour by hour, like in your calendar or something?
Yeah, I try and do it by 30-minute time blocks, but sometimes it'll be, a little bit more rough around the edges than that. But really the most important thing for me is it's the practice of doing it. It's just like being aware enough and like on top of my shit enough to sit down the night before and take literally 5 minutes and just map out what my next day looks like. And then obviously like the waking up in the morning is a little bit more difficult sometimes, but like it's really the small shit. Like it's the small shit that I just need to do, and I know that I need to do, but sometimes like it's challenging for me. Like if I get home from a late dinner and it's like 9 p.m. I'm like, I just don't want to even go into my office and look at that shit. It's hard to convince myself to do it. But like once I do it, I know that the next day is like the chances that the next day will be a good day and productive increase by like 100-fold.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like that small commitment, even whenever you're really tired, is totally worth it.
For sure.
Your day the next day is going to be so much better.
Yeah, 100%. What about you? Like, do you find anything like that?
Dude, so my one thing I would say, and I've actually like nerded out on this. I've gone through like literally almost minute by minute, and I've wrote down like all of my daily habits, like what I do. And then I like look at it and I'm like, well, that's a fucking waste of time. Like that's a waste of time. Like what else can I do instead of this? What else can I do instead of that? And I also make these connections where I'm trying to identify like these different things, like whenever I'm feeling my best, whenever I'm in a really good mood, whenever I'm feeling happy, what are the types of habits and what are the types of things that I'm doing? And I've got a whole list, and I've had some of my clients do this the same. So if I could show you on my notes app, I'm not going to, but I've got a whole list of things, like it's literally titled like things that make me happy or something like that. And it's a list of like 30 things. And so like whenever I'm feeling in a funk or whenever I'm having a really bad day or like my training is going really poorly, I go to that list and I look at it and I'm like, man, like these are all the things that I'm doing whenever I'm feeling really good, And so I'm like, what can I get back to doing to help me get back to that good spot, And one of the things that like really pops up over and over again is like whenever I am consistently reading first thing in the mornings. So like if I wake up, don't look at my phone, don't get on social media, don't check my email, don't check baseball scores, and like literally just pick up a book, grab my coffee, go sit out on the patio or sit on the couch, sit at the table and read for 30 to 60 minutes. Everything for the rest of my day is so much better. Like I just feel like it's like warm up cognitively for my brain. Like I'm getting going, I'm waking up, warming my brain up, and I feel like I'm a better coach for my clients. I feel like I communicate better with my wife, like all of these different things that I could kind of connect to that one habit. So that's definitely my thing.
No, dude, that's exactly me.
You're an avid reader too, I know. Like,
yeah, I do the exact same thing. And part of that too for me is exactly what you said. Is I try my best to not look at my phone until like 10 or 11 a.m. And the longer that I've found that I can push looking at my phone the first time, whenever I say looking at my phone, I also mean like looking at messages, looking at like Instagram. I don't mean like, looking at some like meditation app or anything like that, which is definitely a little bit different. But for me, I found that those are so correlated. Like the reading is kind of like my self-love time, right? Like me, like showing up for myself and be like, look, like we're going to do this because whenever you do it, you feel better. You feel like you start your day off accomplished, right? Like, I guess me reading is very much like someone else making their bed. It's a little bit more involved, a little bit more time consuming. Making their bed is definitely an easier thing. That's my equivalent there. Is like, again, it's starting your day off with something that immediately makes you feel energized and makes you feel productive and makes you feel like you've kind of taken that leap forward before everyone else is even awake. Well, for me, in my case, at least, because I wake up so early, like I feel like I've accomplished shit before everyone else has even woken up. And I like that feeling a lot. And, you know, part of the thing too is, you know, just not checking my phone, because it's very easy for me to get distracted. Like my brain is like a monkey brain. So like, I'll be sitting on my computer, like trying to get work done. I'm like toggling back and forth between windows, like checking this, checking that. Like I have to keep my phone in the other room while I'm working so I don't check it, all those things. But I found that, again, in the morning, this is another big reason why I like to do this, is that I can be very like unilaterally focused. I don't feel that like pushing and pulling of my attention in all of these different directions. It's like I can literally just pay attention to something that is seemingly like unimportant for that moment, which is, you know, some random book that I decided to read. Like there's no urgency to read that book. Like I don't have to do it today. I don't have to do it tomorrow. It's just because I'm choosing to do it. So my attention can be purely on that moment that I'm in. And it's
so much easier to focus.
Yeah, and it's probably like the only time that I really get during the day where I don't feel like I'm either kind of getting transported into the future by being a little anxious or worrying about something, or being like, you know, shuttled in the past, being like, oh shit, like I'm just hung up on like making that mistake, or like, you know, I fucked that up, or like, oh, I really wish that I could do this over again, or like all of those things. It's just like I'm consistently being pulled back and forth in all of these different directions, and part of that is my own doing, definitely. But you know, starting your day out in some way, shape, form that makes you happy, like you said, you had that flip, dude, that's probably honestly something I should sit down and do.
Yeah. So like whenever you're doing that morning shit that you do, it's like you just feel like you're fully focused and like fully present. And I feel, and like you said, all other parts of the day, it's so hard to get that, because you got other demands and people hollering at you and texting you and emailing you and all that. So yeah. Do you read a lot? Like I know you read a bunch of books. Do you read a lot about like mindfulness and stuff like that? Because I feel like kind of what you're saying is, because I do.
Yeah.
Like I've been on a kick for the last like couple of years, and it's just really interesting to me. And again, that's another thing that I've noticed, that like whenever I'm being mindful and trying to be as present as possible, like even on this podcast, like I had to shut my blinds and I put my dogs in my air conditioned garage and shut the door, because like I know that if the Amazon delivery guy comes, like that's gonna like pull me away, you know, and it's gonna distract me. And so I just try to like handle all that so that I can fully like focus on having a conversation with you. I don't know where I'm going with that, but
my dog is she's at the moment peacefully sleeping next to me. We'll hope that the Amazon delivery guy doesn't walk out from the door while we're talking. I'm gonna knock on wood here, but no, I agree with you. And I've gone through phases. So like for me, whenever I'm reading it, I do my best to just choose a topic or choose a book that like I actually want to read, right? Like I've gone through different phases with reading, where like I try and read shit that like I feel will make me a better person, or like make me more productive, make me like a better business owner. And then I just got to the point where I was like, this is for me. Like I'm like, if I want to read about some random bullshit that like just like stoked my interest that day, like I'm gonna read that, you know? Yeah, it's like I want to read this because I want to read it, not because I feel like there's some other ethics or like, you know, forcing me into self-help or business or, you know, money management, whatever, right? So I definitely have gotten on these mindfulness kicks. I actually just read a book not that long ago. It's called Waking Up by Sam Harris. I don't know if you've ever read that.
Well, I mean, I used to have his app and everything. Like I think it's the Waking Up app, but I haven't read the book. Was it good?
It's not bad. It's not bad. I don't know. Like I definitely expected a little bit more. Like I don't know if you know much about Sam Harris.
Not a ton. I mean, I've heard him on a couple of different. I think he's got the 10% Happier podcast or something like that. Is that his?
I don't think that's his. He has a podcast, but I don't remember what it's called.
But yeah, I know who he is. Like I'm somewhat familiar, but I haven't like read a bunch of books and like done a deep dive on him or anything like that. So
no, he's just like a really intellectual dude. But I don't know. The book is okay. It wasn't horrible, but it was very much like, you know, mindfulness. It's mixing a lot of like the ideas of like the brain and consciousness and like, you know, Eastern philosophy, and trying to find some kind of like, you know, connection in there. Be like, Sam Harris is an atheist, but like this book is very spiritual. So it's him kind of like walking through his own struggles with like being atheist, but also like a very spiritual person. I felt like that was an interesting dynamic in the book, but no, I definitely am big on a lot of like the mindfulness and like I'm I don't know about your religious beliefs, but like I'm not religious. But I would also classify myself as like being at least partially spiritual. Like I have beliefs that like I want I want to like actually believe those things. You know what I mean? Like I have leanings that that I would really, really hope are true in some
Yeah.
capacity. It makes life a lot more beautiful to think
Yeah.
of those
I
things.
feel, I feel like if even if you're like if you're not religious, you still need to have some kind of like spiritual, like whether it's I don't know, whether it's like stoicism or like or some type of philosophy that you can adhere to, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to just not believe in anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are some people for sure that just don't believe in anything. But it's hard for me to get to that point. You know, like my rational brain can understand
Yeah.
how that would be true, but I think it's like my hopeful brain that is like, man, I don't want there to be nothing. You know, so
Right.
but yeah, we definitely don't have to like turn this into a religious talk. But like I've read quite a bit of like spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
I think also because I've had like a pretty strong fascination with like psychedelics and like hallucinogens and like that type of like those
So,
drug use as
hey,
well. So
yeah, while we're on that topic, you actually, I was telling my friend, we went on a ruck a couple weeks ago, and I was actually, this was before you reached out to me to be on your podcast. I was telling him that like you completely changed like my perspective on those types of things. Like even like in the early 20s and stuff. Yeah, dude, I just used to be like so scared of even like edibles or like weed, and I thought it was bad, and I was like judgmental and stuff. And now it's like I'm like I feel like you've had a huge part in just making me like so much more open minded about all of those types of things, and like definitely like I'm no longer judgmental. Like I couldn't care less what somebody chooses to do. And I think a lot of that stuff is far less worse than like getting drunk all the time and alcohol. So
that,
yeah, you consider a part in that. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. No, like I've actually gotten to a point where I'm trying to be sober.
Yeah.
So I think well I haven't swung full pendulum. Like I'm not anti-drug or anything like that. Definitely
Yeah.
not anti-drug. It's more so like I've experienced a lot whenever it comes to like, you know, that world. And kind of just want to calm down, you know, just calm
Yep.
down, especially whenever it comes like the party scene. But the psychedelic stuff, dude, it like I don't know, you've never tried anything like that?
Once.
What
Yeah. 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 Uh,
was it a bad experience?
no, no, it was actually great. It was just like a very tiny amount. Like it wasn't like it was like point one, whatever. I don't know. Like just micro dose basically.
Yeah. Dude, so with that, like I've had some pretty like profound
Yeah.
psychedelic experiences. And because of that, like that's impacted my beliefs on like spirituality quite a bit. It's kind of impossible to not have.
Is that because when you do it, like, does it make you like super introspective and like heightened awareness and stuff? And you're just kind of thinking or what?
So it's very hard to explain what a like a really strong like psychedelic trip would feel like
Yeah.
to in like that subjective experience. There's actually really no words to it. So like it's funny because whenever they do it in clinical settings, they have something that's called I think it's called like the ineffable index.
Yeah.
I think that's actually what they call it, but that essentially means like the unspeakable index. Like how hard is it to actually put words to this? And we're gonna grade you on that scale. And a high scale is like a very strong trip, right? So like if you can't really talk about it in human language, that means you got a pretty strong
Like
trip.
unless somebody else had experienced it, they couldn't possibly.
Yeah. Yeah. So it again, it is pretty challenging to put like words to anything that you would be feeling or seeing or experiencing in that world. But well, once you do it, it changes you. It changes you like for I guess better and worse. Like some people definitely are worse in different areas, but I had one experience in particular. I think I talked about this quite a bit. But it was in 2020, so this was actually like you know, around the time of, you know, me tearing my adductor, me getting a divorce, like COVID, all that stuff. So just a very, very busy year for me.
Yeah.
But I had a super intense psychedelic trip. And dude, like I've talked to people and they're like, yeah, you pretty much have never been the same since then, but like in a good way. Like,
Really?
yeah, it was.
Yeah. That's another thing that started making me so less or like think about it so much more is because like I talked to people that like multiple people who like told me that it changed their lives and like made their lives so much better. And like after doing it, they were just like a completely different person. So it's like, how can you judge that? Like if it helped this person and like they stopped like getting drunk every single night and like they're no longer an alcoholic and you know?
Yeah. Just like without going into too much details, like what specifically happened with me, it was what I would consider to be like a very bad trip. So it wasn't one of those where like I saw God and like, it's like crazy euphoric, like I'm one with the universe type of experience. It wasn't anything beautiful like that.
Yeah.
Mine was like the exact opposite actually. So it was just one of those things where it's like after it ended, I had like the most insane amount of gratitude for
But
for like this experience being over.
really,
And for me like not being permanently fucked up and like in some like loony bin or like dead or arrested, like the fact that I got through that and I was like still me.
really,
Yeah. So
it's
I
almost like a traumatic experience where somebody has like almost a life ending like injury or crash or something like that, and then they just take on like a whole new perspective.
so without sounding dramatic, like it
Yeah.
was very much a near death experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So without it being like a physically near death, it was like a psychological near death
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
But whenever I came back, it was that like moment of like why am I just like wasting my life?
Yeah.
Like I felt very much like I had a second chance to kind of like start fresh in that moment. So yeah, like it wasn't a conscious decision that I made to be like, oh, I'm just going to be like a good person now. Or I'm going to do things different. I'm going to try hard. Like it wasn't anything like that. It was just like this subtle rewiring of my brain. And
So
like,
crazy.
yeah, it was going through like a very difficult personal time anyway. And then after that happened, I was like, yeah, like I think I just kind of want to do some things different. Like I don't like the way that I've been living my life. I want to just kind of try and fork a different path now. But obviously, like everyone can have different experiences, but those that I've had have made me increasingly aware of like things like mindfulness and just like where my brain is going. Because whenever you are under the influence of like a psychedelic drug, you mentioned being introspective, and like that's a huge component of it is you're aware of your own awareness. You're being able to almost like take a step back and like dissociate from your conscious thoughts, and you can see like how monkey brained you actually are. And the more that you can kind of like slow and quiet that voice in your head, the better a psychedelic experience is going to be, because then you're not freaking out. You can actually just like settle into it. So I became like really, really interested in things like meditation and things like, just, I guess, spirituality and more, Eastern spirituality, Buddhism and stuff like that afterwards. Haven't gone as deep into those things as I would probably like to or need to, but I would hope that I'm not, completely ignorant of those anymore.
Right. Yeah, I know it's super interesting to, yeah, I'm not an expert on it by any means. But I have like over the last 2 or 3 years just been like so much more interested in it. And I've dug into like all the mindfulness books and things like that, and try to keep a pretty daily habit of meditating. I'm not the greatest with it, but I may hit like 3.5 days per week on average, but yeah, I love it, man. Like I love like, and it's like you can bring mindfulness to like literally everything you do, like driving your truck, like just turn off your phone and like be quiet and like pay attention to like things that you don't normally see. And having a kid kind of helped with that too, because it's like there's certain little things that like whenever I'm taking him to school, like we'll point out and we'll see like, oh, like there's a school bus, or like we'll count the school buses, or it could be something dumb like I don't know, a stick in a road or something like that. But it's like little things that like I start paying more attention to. And then like even whenever he's not with me, like I'll take a picture of it so that I can show him like, oh buddy, look what I saw when I was driving to whatever. But yeah, you can practice mindfulness when you're driving. You can practice mindfulness like going for a walk. Like sometimes I'll do those mindfulness walks. So on the app, I use the Calm app. But yeah, you can do a mindfulness walk, like, mindful eating, like just slowing down how I'm eating and like literally paying attention to like the smells and the taste and the aroma and all that. And it just carries over into so much more. And I was actually having a conversation with somebody the other day too about how, like, I think all of those types of things, like just trying to carve out some mindfulness or some silence sometime throughout your day, even helps like drastically with sleep, like getting to sleep and like falling asleep. I don't really know how, but I know that like whenever I'm doing those things, it's definitely easier for me to be chill and relax at the end of the day. So it's almost like you should like your bedtime routine, your nighttime routine, like that stuff is important, but it kind of starts early in the day.
Yeah. There are times whenever I'm in the middle of my day and I'll have to stop what I'm doing and just take like 5 minutes of just like breathing.
Yeah.
I'll like just close my computer. I'll set an alarm on my phone and just close my eyes, lean back in my chair and just breathe and just focus on breathing. try not to allow my brain to drift, just like inhale, exhale, and I just like count. So it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and like that is obviously crazy because you realize like how shitty your breathing patterns are for one.
Yeah.
Like both of our breathing patterns are so shallow. Like I get out of breath just breathing whenever I do those like really extended inhalations and exhalations. But
Like tired at the end.
yeah. But dude, just like it's so like it's just a rush of euphoria that comes over you at the end of that, where you're like, I just feel like I lifted the veil off of my head. And it's still difficult for me to like convince myself to do it in the middle of my day when I'm like, I have so much shit I need to do. Like I can't set aside 5 minutes. But every time I do it, I'm always like very appreciative that I did do it. And it always improves my mood drastically. And I don't know if you do anything like that. Do you go on like walks that are just like, during your day?
Yeah. So what you were just saying, like, do you know who Brian Cron is?
That name sounds familiar.
He's somewhat, he's got a social media presence, but I've been following him for quite a while. I've like heard him present a couple of times and things like that. But he had a quote a while back. It's probably like a couple of years ago, maybe even like 3 or 4 years ago, but it has stuck with me ever since. And he basically said something along the lines of like, if you don't have time if you feel like you're too busy or don't have time to meditate for 5 minutes, you need to meditate for 30 minutes, And that has just like stuck with me for so long. And I've probably repeated it like multiple times since in different types of ways. But yeah, I do things like that. So if I'm feeling stressed with like work or really with anything, like I'll go out and walk. Sometimes I won't even put headphones in. I'll just go walk and like be quiet and like be in my own head and like thinking and stuff. Or I'll go lay down and do like I guess like a meta nap or something. Like I'll meditate for like 5 to 10 minutes and just kind of like drift off into sleep. And I'll take like a 20-minute nap. And yeah, it's interesting because so many people will be like, how do you have time for that? Like and it's like, I make time for it. Like, cause whenever I do those things, I'm going to be so much more productive rest of the day. I'm going to be in a better mood for wife and kid and clients and all that. So yeah, definitely. I try to make time for those things on a daily basis. So my wife and one of my best friends give me a hard time all the time because I'm like, I'm super chill, dude. Like I don't have any problem like relaxing. Like I'll take like some days, like I'll take a hot bath at the end of the day and I'll just like read a book and like chill out. But yeah, I intentionally started years ago making time for those types of things. And now it's just a huge part of my daily routine. And I just do it without even thinking about it. And I don't realize that it's weird or that I'm like so much different until somebody points it out. They're like, what are you doing? Like you actually do that? So
it's just really common for people to be super high strung.
Yeah.
We're all, I think, professionals at making ourselves feel more important and more busy than we actually are. And I'm definitely guilty of this as well, where if I actually look at what I'm doing in a day, I'm like, that is not a 16-hour workday type of thing. It's like I have a lot of leakage going on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Productivity.
And don't get me wrong, I do too. Like I still do stupid shit, like and have bad, like yeah.
Well, I don't. What is it? I can't remember what it's called now. I think it's like called Parkinson's law or something. I run across it multiple times. Essentially, like like your work expands to fit the time you've allotted for it. But so
is that Pareto's principle.
Is that Pareto's?
Is that it?
Is it Pareto's or is Pareto's 80-20?
You're right. That's 80-20. Yeah, Parkinson's law or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
I get it right as well. So yeah, that's what my head's at. But I really took that to heart a while ago when I first was introduced to that concept. And I started like restricting my time for certain things. So it was like, all right, I have client work that I need to do this morning. I'm going to restrict myself to doing, 3 hours of client work. If I don't get it done in that 3 hours, I'm moving on. I'm not just going to like, fuck around and continue like time. But I always get it done in those 3 hours because I understand that I can get it done in that time. I just have to stay focused, right? Like I can't just, be on my phone. I can't be like surfing the web. I can't like fuck around with my dog in the middle of the day. It's like, if I can stay focused, I'm going to get that stuff done. But
then you can do all those other things that you want to do.
But in an alternate world, like I could also allot 6 hours for doing client work and not any of it done because I'm just like so distracted because like, I have 6 hours to do this. So like, I don't really need to rush. And then, hour 5 comes rolling around. I haven't got anything done. And I'm just like, well, now I don't have the ability to actually get any of this client work done. So no, that's where I'm at with it. Part of like my ability, I think, to slowly taper up my output in terms of like, client work, but also like content creation, like I like podcasting, just doing all of those things, but also now feeling much more like I have a life than I ever did in the past. I had the ability to travel like much more recently. What this would have been a few weeks ago now. A few weeks ago, we went to a music festival and we camped out for 5 days and I didn't do any work. Like, and I had never done that since I've been in this role as a coach. I had never taken that long off from work. It, like, there have been times, I've like not checked my email for a day or two, but never like 5 days where I'm just like, I'm not doing any work, guys. But I was able to do that.
And the world didn't end, right? Like, I bet your clients like were actually supportive of it. And
yeah. So it was really nice. But at the same time, like that proved to me, like, okay, dude, you're very capable of doing this. You just need to stay focused for a little bit. Just like, don't fuck around, don't waste time, and you can get a lot of stuff done, right? So then now I also take Saturdays off. Every Saturday, I take off from work. Whereas before, this would have been years ago. I was a 7-day-a-week worker. I was like, pretty much all day, every day I would work, or I'd feel like I had to work, but it was really just
hustle.
Yeah, but it was really just inefficient, right? Like I was very inefficient at everything that I was doing. But now I've gotten to the point where I just like, kind of understand a little bit more intuitively that you don't have to outwork everyone if you can just be a little bit more intentional about how you work. And that's nice for me, but at the same time, like I sometimes feel like I'm like, well, do I deserve any of this shit? Like, do I deserve to be like living comfortably whenever I don't feel like I'm working hard?
Dude, I have those thoughts like all the damn time. Like I just so lucky and just so grateful. Like I literally do exactly what I want to do every single day. And like I don't ever dread going to work or like basically any of my daily habits or any of my daily routine. Like I don't dread anything. And I feel like you and I are probably in the 1% who can say that. And sometimes, yeah, I feel guilty, like borderline guilty about it, but yeah, it's cool.
So like, what are you doing now with work? Like, you're fully online now, right?
Yeah. So like 99% fully online. So I actually just, speaking of, I've actually got a client coming pretty soon. But okay. Yeah. So I just started training, in person again. I just wanted to pick up like a couple of clients. So, so actually right now I've only got one guy that I'm training on Tuesday, like at 1 p.m. So, but yeah, other than that, I am 100% fully online, which is great. Like just schedule flexibility and everything. But like you were saying too, I've had a similar transformation in that regard as well. It's like I had that realization where it's like, man, I could take 8 hours to do all my client check-ins and I can F around and like get sidetracked and things like that. Or I can block off like 2 hours, put in some headphones and just like get completely in the zone, knock it out. And then I've got like all these extra hours in the afternoon to do the things that I want to do and that I enjoy doing, whether that's going for a ruck or working out or reading more or whatever it is. Like, so yeah.
Well, what time do you have to dip out, by the way?
I told him I'll be a few minutes late, so probably like 10 minutes.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, dude. Yeah. We'll definitely wrap this up here in a second. But
yeah,
I wanted to get at least a couple of blurbs on like training and stuff like that, since I know that we'll have to do this again.
We absolutely will. Yeah.
But no, I wanted to kind of like get a little bit of your background, just like with where you came from with training. Obviously now, being fully remote, that's where I'm at too. But I have a pretty extensive like in-person background. Like I interned for years in person. I did like group training. I did personal training. I did like, athletic group training. And then I did my own stuff. So I moved on, I had my own business in person, and then finally migrated online. Like, what was your arc there? Was it similar?
Yeah. So I started off as a in-person personal trainer at Lifetime Fitness. So that was back in like 2011? And I was there 2011 or 12, and I was there until 2017. And then in 2017, I started talking with one of my best friends, Mike Dola. He had a company. It was an online nutrition coaching company called Stronger You. And he's the one that convinced me that like I could go online full time and like make what I need to make, or make a living doing that. And I was super skeptical. I was like, dude, there's no way possible. Like, but he, we had a few conversations. He nudged me like 2 or 3 times before I finally did it. But yeah, I started at Stronger You in 2017, online nutrition company. And then I was there for, I think 3 years. And then actually in March of 2020, like literally 2 weeks before like the pandemic started, I decided to go off on my own. So it was like the worst timing possible. So, yeah, it was awful. But thankfully, like everything worked out. And And a lot of my clients that were with me stayed with me, which he was cool with. And then got some friends as clients who spread the word and things like that. So everything went great. But yeah, I've been doing my own thing since March of 2020. So a little over, it's already been 3 years. So everything, and during that time, everything has been online. And like I told you, until very recently, I decided that I wanted to start taking in-person clients again. So I'm going to start trying to do maybe 4 to 6 hours of like one-on-one in-person training, just because it's fun. Like I enjoy connecting with people and talking to people and things like that. So
online, it can be lonely, man. It can be lonely.
Yeah, dude, it's totally isolating. And that was another thing. Like I struggled with that whenever I left Stronger You. Like whenever I was a Stronger You, I used to bitch about like all the meetings and stuff, but then whenever I left, I'm like, dang, like I miss those. And just like the camaraderie and everything. Cause like, even though everybody was like all over the globe and it was online, there was like 90 coaches. And those are people who I consider like colleagues who you can message and like ask questions and shoot things off of and stuff like that. And now I'm like on an island and I do not have that. So that was pretty tough to get past, but I started trying to like find community and things like that in different ways, like, going to coffee shops and seeing the same guys in there every day and like talking to them and doing all those types of things. So
funny, dude. I go to a library.
Do you?
I go to a public library. Yeah.
It's funny. I go to Starbucks a lot of days. Sometimes I go to just like a local coffee shop here in town, and yeah.
No, yeah.
But I know everybody up there, and like I go to this Starbucks I go to, they're awesome. Like whenever I walk in, they all like scream your name basically. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I've made best friends with librarians, man. Like they're dope. It's awesome. Yeah. But I think that online coaching just in general, like it's really, really, really luxurious. It's a very fortunate position to be in. But I think that there are so many people that like get into online coaching and they just assume that like, all right, cool. Like I'm set. Like once I get, 20, 30 clients, like I don't have to do anything else. Like I'm just gonna coast forever. Especially whenever you own your own business and it's all online, like you doing it right before COVID. It's actually kind of similar to me. I went from in-person to online, maybe like 4 or 5 months before COVID. So I actually did the perfect thing.
Yeah.
Like I already had an online presence and I already
have timed it any better.
Yeah, I already had enough clients online to like get me through that period, but I went completely away from in person right before that happened. So like that was the absolute best timing. But I mean, I had no clue what I was supposed to be doing whenever it came to like business. I was just like, I'm just gonna train people. I'm just gonna give you workouts. I'm gonna coach you. Like that should be it. And it's like the business side of things that has like slowly been catching up with my like technical knowledge on the coaching end of things. But it's been such a slow process. And if someone told me like it would have taken this long for me to like get my shit together whenever it comes to business, I probably would have never done this.
Right.
Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like it would have just been such an overwhelming thought to be like, oh my God, I don't know anything. I'm just going to go be a trainer at LA Fitness. I'm going to go be a trainer, like some, in-person private gym. Like the fact that I'm here now is just mostly because of my own ignorance and the time. Like I didn't realize, I thought it was gonna be so much easier than it was. But like, as I went along the process, like, well, all right, well, I've come this far. I can't like back out now, or like I have all these clients. I can't just give up. I can't just like quit, Yeah. But it's just, it's great, but it's also, I feel like highly glamorized in the sense that it's very easy to just pretend like online coaching is so easy. It's just like such this like luxurious profession, but dude, it's competitive. It's hard. And like, there are definitely times where I'm like, this is a freaking struggle.
Yeah, I mean, it's got its downsides just like any other job, but to me, like all the upsides outweigh those things,
For sure.
There are definitely some things that can be a huge struggle. Yeah.
Oh, dude, perfect. I'm gonna let you go on that note. We're gonna have to do this again because I should have asked you before we even hit record. Your hard cutoff time.
We were just kind of talking, and then I kind of like put you on the spot. I'm like, hey, just go ahead and hit record. Like,
oh yeah, and then we just went off on a complete tangent. Like, get your intro. We didn't get like your full background. But it's fine. Well, I'm gonna let you plug yourself real quick. So just if you want to drop like where people can find more information about you, go ahead and let them know real quick.
Yeah. So on Instagram at Dstanleyfit. Also on Threads now, same at Threads. And then my website is DerekStanleyFitness.com. So those are the three main places that you can find me.
Awesome, dude. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this. And we're definitely going to do another more structured one soon.
Yeah, dude. I'm down.
All right, perfect. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, I'll see you later.